Good afternoon, everyone. Just give it a couple more minutes, got a few more people joining. A couple more seconds. Welcome and thank you for joining this webinar, Plumbing Compliance Certificates, Obligations and Common Inquiries, held as part of Victorian Building Authority's Practitioner Education Series. My name is Phil Locke and I'm the team leader of the plumbing technical team, and I will be your host for today's webinar. I'd like to begin by acknowledging the traditional custodians of the land on which we meet today, and I pay our respects to elders past and present, and I extend that respect to Aboriginal and Torres Strait Island people attending the session today. As Victoria's building and plumbing regulator, the VBA is committed to ensuring a confident and thriving industry and collaborates with stakeholders to enhance practitioner competencies and deliver and improve outcomes for the community. We have a role in ensuring practitioners understand how to do things correctly and in discouraging risky and harmful illegal behaviour in the building and plumbing industry. Today's Practitioner Education Series webinar will be presented by Neville Campbell. Neville is a senior technical advisor within the technical plumbing team with over 17 years experience in the plumbing industry. Neville has worked in both commercial and domestic sectors prior to joining the VBA, and Neville is a technical writer and routinely represents the VBA in matters before the Victorian Civil Administrative Tribunal. The VBA's Practitioner Education Series helps support the building and plumbing industries by providing practical insights, evidence-based strategies, and useful resources to practitioners. The webinar series aims to give practitioners an improved and consistent understanding of their regulatory requirements and to help safeguard Victoria's future. Before we begin the session, I'd like to let you know that the session is being recorded, and a link to this presentation we made available on our website, along with previous webinars we have conducted. We've set time aside at the end of the presentation for questions. However, if you'd like to draw your attention to the Q&A icon at the bottom of the screen, and encourage you to type your questions there throughout the presentation. We'll attempt to address as many of your questions in the time available, and you can also vote and comment on questions that are most interested in. So without further ado, I would like to hand over to Neville, who will get going on the presentation. Thank you.
Thanks, Phil. Good afternoon, everyone. Just before I get started, I'd like to remind the audience that today's topic is limited to compliance certificates as defined by Part 12A of the Building Act. That is, compliance certificates issued for plumbing work. It does not cover waterproofing certificates or certificates issued under Building Regulation 126. The purpose of this webinar is to highlight common misconceptions around compliance certificates. The session will focus on practitioner obligations under the Building Act of 1993 and address some common compliance certificate questions. The learning goal for this session is to increase practitioner awareness of their legal obligations regarding compliance certificates. The learning objective is to understand the circumstances and timing on when a compliance certificate must be issued. By the end of this webinar, you should be able to identify plumbing work for which a compliance certificate must be issued, identify when a compliance certificate must be issued, and be aware of the penalties that may apply if you fail to meet the compliance certificate obligations. Excuse me. What we will cover: we'll look at information that should be on a compliance certificate, what a compliance certificate is, when a compliance certificate can or must be issued, information that should be on a compliance certificate, and retaining and accessing compliance certificates. So what is a compliance certificate? A compliance certificate is a document issued by a licensed plumber to certify that the work they've carried out is compliant with the plumbing standards, codes and regulations. Only a licensed plumber may issue a compliance certificate. Registered plumbers cannot issue them. Plumbing work that is listed on a compliance certificate is covered by the licensed plumber's insurance for a period of 6 years. This means that any defects that arise in the plumbing work within 6 years is covered by the insurance. The document is not a compliance certificate unless the certificate form used is a form that has been supplied by the VBA. So what work must be on a compliance certificate? So what work must compliance certificate be issued for? For any type of plumbing work, if the total value of the work is $750 or more, this includes the cost of labour, materials, appliances and fixtures, regardless of who purchased them, and GST. Note that a compliance certificate is not required to be issued for any Type B gas fitting work, Type B gas fitting advanced work, or any complex gas installation. If the total value of the work is $750 or more, a compliance certificate must be issued. Start that again. If the total value of the work is under $750, a compliance certificate must be issued for any plumbing work carried out on a below-ground sanitary drain or associated gully, involving the relocation, installation, replacement or conversion of any gas-using appliance, any work involving the installation, modification or relocation of gas consumer piping, unless carried out on behalf of a gas company, or if the plumbing work involved the construction, installation, relocation, alteration or replacement of a cooling tower. There's quite a few triggers there. So to simplify these requirements, we've created a decision tree or flow chart. The chart breaks the steps down into 5 questions, which will determine if a compliance certificate must be used. So we start at the top here. Is a compliance certificate required? Not sure. First question we need to ask ourselves is it a complex gas installation? If we're not sure, we can refer to ESV's sheet 33, which is available via this QR code. Now, if it is a complex gas installation, you need to refer to Energy Safe Victoria because it's not actually regulated by the VBA. If the answer is no, the next question we need to ask ourselves is the total value of the plumbing work $750 or more, including materials and GST? If that answer is no, we can move down to the next one. Does the plumbing work involve below ground sanitary drainage? If it does, it must have a compliance certificate issued. If not, does the work involve a cooling tower? So the installation, relocation, alteration or replacement of a cooling tower. Not too many of those left in Victoria, so it's pretty unlikely, but if it does, if it is that sort of work on the cooling tower, a compliance certificate is required. Excuse me. If the answer to that is no, it brings us to our last question. So does the plumbing work involve the installation, relocation, replacement or conversion of any gas-using appliance, or the installation, modification or relocation of gas consumer piping? Now, if the answer to that is no, then a compliance certificate is not mandatory. Quick quiz time. You perform servicing work on a Type A appliance in its fixed location, and the total value of the work is under $750. Is a compliance certificate required? So your options here are yes, no, I'm not certain, or in certain circumstances. We'll look at the poll and then we'll work through this. For anyone who may be still thinking about that, you can answer the poll, or you can wait till we have a bit of a work through it, or answer it while we work through it, perhaps. So we know the question. You perform servicing work on a Type A appliance in its fixed location, and the total value of the work is under $750. Is a compliance certificate required? The answer to that. So we've got 35% who say no, and that's correct. Now we'll work through that and we'll have a look what that looks like. So we know it's a Type A appliance and we're going to assume it's a standard gas installation. So the first one doesn't apply. We know the work's under $750. We know it's not a drain or a cooling tower. So this brings us to our final question. Does the plumbing work involve the installation, relocation or replacement of or conversion of a gas using appliance? Well, we haven't done any of those. We've actually only serviced it in its fixed location. The installation, modification or relocation of consumer piping, no, we haven't actually done anything to the piping at all. So the answer, of course, in that circumstance is no, a compliance certificate is not mandatory. So the meaning of the total value of plumbing work. The total value of plumbing work means the cost of any materials used in the work, even if the materials were not supplied by the person carrying out the work, and any thing being installed, even if the thing was not supplied by the person carrying out the work, and the cost of the labour involved in the work and the GST. Another quick question. A homeowner purchases a sink mixer valued at $650 and requests a plumber to install it. The plumber charges $100 to install the mixer. Is a compliance certificate required for this job? Yes, no, in certain circumstances, I'm not sure. What do we reckon that one is? Pretty common job, quick and easy. Okay, so let's see how we went. So is a compliance certificate required for this job? The answer is yes. The total value is $750 or more. Not sure what our survey results said. Oh, here we go. 80%. 80% of people said that a compliance certificate is required. That's correct. So when can a compliance certificate be issued? A licensed plumber can only issue a compliance certificate if they have carried out or completed the work themselves, supervised a registered plumber or apprentice carrying out the work, or engaged another licensed plumber to carry out the work, or if the plumber has completed the work started by another licensed plumber, provided the plumber issuing the certificate has inspected and or tested the work that was carried out before they carried out any work, and carried out any work that was required to complete the plumbing work or supervise the carrying out of the completion of the work, and state in the compliance certificate that the work complies with the requirements with the requirements in the certificate and the plumbing laws. A licensed plumber must not state that the work was carried out under their supervision unless the person who carried out the work was authorised to carry out the work. The maximum penalty for failing to meet these obligations is 120 penalty units. So what is a penalty unit? A penalty unit determines the amount a person is fined when they commit an infringement offence. The value of a penalty unit is set annually by the Victorian Treasurer and is updated on the 1st of July each year. Until the 30th of June 2023, the value of a penalty unit is $184.92. This means that the current dollar value of 120 penalty units is equal to $22,190.40. For more information on penalty units, visit Justice and Community Safety website via this QR code. So, when must a compliance certificate be issued? The licensed plumber must give the person for whom the work was carried out a signed compliance certificate within 5 days of completion of any plumbing work for which a compliance certificate is required. The licensed plumber must also notify the authority that the compliance certificate has been given by lodging the certificate in VMIA 360. Note that allocated compliance certificates must be lodged to meet these requirements. So if you're leaving certificates in the allocated state for more than 5 days after the work is complete, this is an offence under the Act. Compliance certificates withheld for non-payment and where work is incomplete. Where a compliance certificate is required to be issued, the legislation requires licensed plumbers to lodge the compliance certificate with the VBA and provide it to the person for whom the work was carried out within 5 days of the work being completed. Just for your understanding, a signed compliance certificate is a lodged compliance certificate. Failing to issue or lodge a compliance certificate within 7 days is a serious offence and could result in a costly infringement notice being issued for each offence or referral to a disciplinary inquiry. You cannot withhold a compliance certificate as leverage for non-payment. Quick quiz time again. This info is hot off the press, so let's see how we go with this one. Where a compliance certificate is required to be issued, can a plumber legally withhold the compliance certificate if they are owed money? Your options are yes, no, in certain circumstances, or I am not sure. The answer, of course, is no, but let's see how we went. Fantastic, 93%. So what does completion mean? Logically, compliance certificate would be issued on completion of the work, but what does completion mean? Plumbing work is completed by a licensed plumber when whichever of the following first occurs. When the plumber completes the whole of the plumbing work that they were engaged to carry out, or the whole of the plumbing work the plumber was engaged to carry out is capable of being used in accordance with the relevant plumbing laws. But what if the work's not completed? If the plumber has not completed the work that the plumber was engaged to carry out, and the person for whom the work was carried out believes on reasonable grounds that the plumber will not complete the plumbing work, the person may serve a notice on the licensed plumber to request the licensed plumber to give the person a signed compliance certificate. Within 5 days of service of a notice, the plumber must give the person a signed compliance certificate and lodge the certificate with the VBA on VBA 360. It is recommended that plumbers describe the extent of the work completed on the compliance certificate for which they are responsible. This situation may arise if the builder stops trading or if the plumber's contract is terminated. In these situations, the plumber should issue a compliance certificate detailing what has been done and what is incomplete. For example, was the rough-in fitted, capped off and pressure tested, or was it incomplete? Had flashings been fitted to the roof, or had the ORG height been set? You can't be held responsible for uncommissioned work if your compliance certificate specifies to what extent the work was incomplete. So when must more than one compliance certificate be issued? If the plumber carries out or supervises the installation, modification or relocation of consumer gas piping, or the relocation or replacement of any gas-using appliance, or converts a gas appliance for use with a different gas, they must give a separate compliance certificate for each separately metered premises where the work was carried out, even if all of the work was carried out or supervised by the plumber for the same person under a contract. Quiz time again. When is plumbing work deemed complete? Is it when it is capable of being used? When all the work I was engaged to do is complete? When the person that engaged me believes that I will not finish the job, or if I've been sacked from the job? Or is it any of the above? Let's have a look. So when is the plumbing work deemed complete? And the answer is E, any of the above. How did we go? 53%. Not great, we're getting there. What information must be on a compliance certificate? A compliance certificate must contain the following information. Where applicable, the 11-digit consent number and confirmation that the plumber has lodged an as-laid plan with the relevant water authority. Details of appliances and fixtures installed with any comments the plumber considers necessary to specify the extent of the work they've carried out. If for any reason the plumber has not completed the work, the certificate must note that the work was not completed, why it was not completed, and to what stage it was completed. Licensed plumber must still issue a compliance certificate for incomplete plumbing work that they have undertaken that requires a compliance certificate. So what information must be on a compliance certificate? Here we'll have a look at what that means in practice. A compliance certificate must contain a licensed plumber's name and license number. The certifier's name and license number. It must contain the site address, the suburb or town, and the postcode. It must contain the date of completion, the value of the plumbing work. Remember, this is the total value of the work, including materials, regardless of who purchased them. Where applicable, the 11-digit consent number and confirmation that the plumber has lodged an as-laid plan with the relevant water authority. So if you've got a consent number, that needs to go in here, and if you've lodged an as-laid plan, you need to indicate that there. Remember, there's penalties for failing to lodge a plan if it's required. The type of work, is it residential or commercial? Residential means class 1 and 10 buildings, and commercial is typically class 2 to 9 buildings. Now that may vary depending on the type of work, so if you're in doubt, contact the VBA. Any specialty details such as cooling towers, sustainability, modifications, performance solutions, caravans, recreational vehicles, caravan chassis numbers need to go in this box. Performance solutions must be indicated if you've used one. If you don't indicate that you've used a performance solution, you're actually signing a compliance certificate that says you've done it in a deemed to satisfy manner. It's also recommended that if you are using a performance solution, that you attach your performance solution paperwork to the certificate and upload it to VBA 360. The certificate also needs to contain the installation information, so the type of plumbing work, which we've got here: gas fitting, water supply, sanitary and drainage. Now, the installation details, this is the work you did, and was it completed or commissioned? The details must be accurate. This is your opportunity to tell, this is your opportunity to detail what you have and have not done. Now, in this example, I'll talk you through this. This is a good example of a compliance certificate and what would give the plumber a lot of protection. So in this instance, this person has specified gas fitting, water supply, hot and cold water, sanitary and drainage, and then they've specified here sewer only, stormwater by others. In the installation details, they've written supply and install consumer gas line in copper, main running 32 mil, from billing meter to hot water unit, cooktop, ducted heater only. Fit off and commission all gas appliances, cooktop clearances overhead, 700 mil to range hood per manufacturer's requirements. Rear burner, 180 mil from burner to ceramic tile splashback. Sides exceed 200 millimetre from burner. Ducted heater, external back wall of house, right-hand side. 50-degree limited continuous flow hot water unit installed, north wall of the house, 2 metres above the ground. All flue clearances achieved. Install hot and cold water and sanitary plumbing and drainage for main bathroom, ensuite, kitchen and laundry only. All fixture locations as per the approved plans dated 21/1/23. Now, this plumber's detail what he's done. He's identified that it is done per the signed plans and the date of the signed plans. So if there was ever any doubt about what the plumber didn't do, there's plans there that specify what the scope of the work was and exactly where those fixture locations were. He's also gone in and put serial numbers. In this case, they're generic, indicating what the appliances were. So if there was an incident or something down the track where there was an investigation or something like that, or it turned out that there was perhaps a toilet installed in the garage and hooked into the stormwater, we would be able to tell that it wasn't part of this certificate. It wasn't done at this time or by this plumber. So what happens if a compliance certificate lacks information? Issuing a compliance certificate that lacks detailed information, such as this one, may expose the plumber to liability for work they've not performed and may result in costly rectification work for plumbing work performed by others. So reflecting on our previous example, if we have a look at this one, gas fitting, water supply, sanitary and drainage, new house, hot water unit, cooktop and ducted heater. Doesn't tell us where they are or what model they are, any serial numbers. It doesn't tell us what the extent is. Drainage could be stormwater and sewer, or it might just be sewer, or it might just be stormwater. Assuming he's put in here, he's done the sanitary, so we'd assume that he's done the sewer. You can see there's endless possibilities there for things that may or may not be included, and there's no real evidence to measure it against to say what he has and hasn't done. So details on a certificate must be accurate. A licensed plumber must not sign a compliance certificate in relation to any plumbing work if the plumber knows or ought to reasonably know that the certificate contains a misstatement of fact. Again, this is your opportunity to detail what you have and have not done. Building practitioner or other person must give a compliance certificate to the owner. So if a licensed plumber carries out any plumbing work for a building practitioner or another person on any premises that the building practitioner or the other person does not own, and the plumber had given the building practitioner or other person a compliance certificate for the work, the building practitioner or other person must give the compliance certificate to the owner of the premises or their agent within 5 days after receiving the compliance certificate. Copies of certificates must be kept for 10 years. A licensed plumber must keep a copy of every compliance certificate signed by them for at least 10 years. So this info is hot off the press. This quiz question, how long must a plumber keep a copy of a compliance certificate that they've issued? Is it 6 years, 10 years, until the check clears, or don't have to keep them? Let's see how we went. %94% said 10 years. Fantastic. So looking up a compliance certificate. Consumers can research and download a compliance certificate using the VBA 360 portal. The search requires the individual compliance certificate number and PIN number from the top right-hand side of the compliance certificate. VBA 360 can be accessed via this QR code. But what if I don't have compliance certificate numbers? In certain circumstances, a compliance certificate may be released by the VBA to eligible people via the online inquiry process. If a plumber can demonstrate, if a person can demonstrate that they are the property owner or consumer of the plumbing services or their authorised representative, they may be eligible to receive a copy of a compliance certificate. You can contact the VBA and provide your name, address, and the name of the plumber if you know, not their company name, and the approximate date of the works were carried out. However, in some circumstances, you may still be referred to make an FOI application. Online inquiries can be lodged via this QR code. FOI requests. The Freedom of Information Act of 1982, or the FOI Act, enables any person to apply for documents held by the VBA. This includes compliance certificates, regardless of whether they are lodged or unlodged, as an unlodged compliance certificate is also a document within the meaning of the FOI Act. For more information about the FOI process, please visit the VBA website via this QR code. Okay, FAQs. So next we'll go through a collection of frequently asked questions received by the plumbing tech team. These examples will demonstrate the information that we've just covered. Can I issue a compliance certificate for a Type B gas appliance? The answer is no, as this work will fall under the meaning of a complex gas installation. Complex gas installations cannot be self-certified using a compliance certificate method. This applies to installations that require a start work and compliance notice to be lodged with ESV, or Energy Safe Victoria. To find out more about complex gas installations, contact Energy Safe Victoria on 1800 652 563. If a plumber is terminated from a job, do they still have to provide a compliance certificate? The answer is yes. If the work involves drainage, certain types of gas fitting work, or the total value of the work and materials is $750 or more, even if the work is incomplete. Do I need to provide a compliance certificate when carrying out a gas safety check? Not necessarily. The requirement to issue a compliance certificate will be triggered if the total value of the work is $750 or more, or the work also involves the installation, relocation, or replacement of a gas-using appliance, or the work also involves the modification of the consumer gas piping, including a replacement of a flexible hose or isolating valve. Note that the temporary removal of a gas appliance from its fixed position is an installation for which a compliance certificate is required. So if I decommission a gas cooktop, do I need to provide a compliance certificate? The answer is yes. The decommissioning of a gas appliance involves the modification of the consumer gas piping, and as such, a compliance certificate must be issued. Can I issue a compliance certificate for plumbing work in a new build if the gas appliances are not installed? Yes, you can issue a compliance certificate at any time for the work that you've done. However, the installation of gas appliances triggers the requirement for another compliance certificate to be issued. I have installed a split system air conditioner. Do I have to issue a compliance certificate for the work? Yes, you must issue a compliance certificate where the total value of the work and materials or appliance is $750 or more. I imagine in the case of virtually all split systems, that would be the case. I've installed a fire sprinkler system. Do I have to issue a compliance certificate for the work? Yes, if the total value of the work and materials is $750 or more, you must issue a compliance certificate. Is a compliance certificate required for the changeover of a thermocouple? No, not unless the value of the work is $750 or more. However, it does trigger the requirement for a gas servicing record to be completed. What happens if a plumbing company goes into liquidation and I'm owed a compliance certificate for the work the company's carried out? Plumbing licenses are only issued to individual people and not linked to a particular company. If the plumbing work required a compliance certificate to be issued and the plumbing company went into liquidation, the individual plumber who performed or supervised the work would be legally obligated to issue a compliance certificate for that work, regardless of whether the work was completed or not. I'm a homeowner trying to obtain a copy of a compliance certificate for plumbing work, but the plumber has been placed into liquidation. What can I do? You can email the VBA customer service team with the practitioner's name and any relevant details, as you may be eligible to receive a copy of the compliance certificate. Can I terminate a plumber's services because the plumber is not turning up to finish the work and ask for a compliance certificate? Yes, you can. If the work triggers the compliance certificate requirements and the plumber fails to issue a compliance certificate within 5 days of their termination, you may serve a written notice on the plumber to request a compliance certificate for the work that they have done. As a plumber, if I leave a job that is not completed, do I need to issue a compliance certificate? Yes. If any of the work triggers the compliance certificate requirements, you will need to issue a compliance certificate for the work that you've done, regardless of whether the work is complete or not. Your compliance certificate should clearly state what you have and have not done. Can a plumber withhold a compliance certificate where there is a dispute relating to variations or if I have not paid him? The answer is no. Practitioner must issue the compliance certificate within 5 days of completion of their work. The plumber cannot withhold issuing a compliance certificate as leverage for non-payment. Can I amend the details on a lodged compliance certificate? This answer is dependent on what stage the certificate is at. If it is lodged and there is no drain bookings or consent number against it, then anything can be amended. However, once lodged, the description can only be amended, not the address. I had a plumber do some work at my place, and when I got the compliance certificate, it had a different name on it. Is this correct? It is not uncommon for plumbing work to be carried out under the supervision of a different plumber. The degree of supervision will vary depending on the experience of the plumber being supervised. That could also be, in this circumstance, a licensed plumber working for another licensed plumber, so as a subby or something to that effect. I've demonstrated compliance with the performance requirements of the Plumbing Code of Australia using a performance solution. Do I still need to issue a compliance certificate? Yes, if the work requires a compliance certificate to be issued, you must issue a compliance certificate within 5 days of completion of the work. The certificate must indicate that a performance solution has been used, and you should upload and attach the paperwork to the compliance certificate in VBA 360. So today we've identified plumbing work for which a compliance certificate must be issued, when a compliance certificate must be issued, and the penalties that may apply if you fail to meet the compliance certificate requirements. We hope this webinar has increased your awareness of your legal obligations regarding compliance certificates, and we'll now have some time to answer your questions. Just so we're aware, any questions that aren't answered in this session, they will be answered in due course and published as FAQs. They'll also be emailed out to the attendees. So I'll now invite the panelists to come off mute and ask Phil to field a few questions for us, if you will, Phil.
Thanks, Neville. Great. There's been some really good questions come in. I see one there that maybe Warren might be able to answer. Are you there, Warren?
Yep. Yeah, no worries. What was that one?
Why is compliance certificate cover 6 years insurance when the builder's statute of limitations is 10?
Yeah, well, in the Building Act in 1993, there's 2 sections there, one that relates to builders and one that relates to plumbers. It's 134 and 134A. The liability is actually 10 years for both practitioners, for builders and plumbers, on the installation of their building or plumbing work. The other side of that is there's a ministerial act that talks about what insurance you should have as a practitioner. And the other question I think that was raised, which is probably in line with this, around 6 years versus 10 years, it actually has been 10 years all along. So if your insurance policy from the completion date of your last certificate and the insurance is only covering run-off insurance for 6 years, you'd be possibly best to talk to your insurance company and perhaps extend run-off insurance from your last certificate. So that might require an additional 4 years. But it's actually 10 years liability on the installation of plumbing or building work in the Act.
Yeah, a lot of our questions you guys have been answering during the presentation, which is great. Is there any there, Matt, that you'd like to respond to? That or one?
Sorry.
Is it?
So there was a couple of questions that targeted the difference between a cooling tower and a vap cooler. That's two questions about the same issue. A cooling tower has a requirement to have a certificate of compliance, no matter what work is when you're installing a cooling tower. But in relation to a vap cooler requires a compliance certificate because the total value of the work will be in excess of $750, including labour and materials, no matter who supplies it. So it's irrelevant whether it's a cooling tower or it's the total value of the work.
I'll just jump in there. I'll just grab this one. So someone's asked, would it not be better to identify the plan drawing number on the certificate rather than only the date and reference? Yeah, agreed. Any information you put on there, anything that can verify exactly which plan number would be great. Which version, definitely. Totally support that.
Good question. Now I got installed and AC, I presume that's an air conditioner, it cost $2,000 a year ago. Can I ask for the certificate of compliance now? I presume that's what he's asking.
I'll answer that one, Phil, if you like. Yeah, it doesn't matter when the work was carried out. The plumber should have issued the compliance certificate at the completion of the work within 5 days. That doesn't result, it doesn't remove his responsibility to issue a certificate down the track. What you can't do is backdate a certificate. So the date you issue the certificate will be the date that shows up on the lodgement, but you can include the date that the work was completed on your certificate. So the certificate's got 2 date entries. One is the date that the work was completed, but then the date that you actually lodge that certificate will be indicated on the lodgement details.
Sorry, Phil, I was just going to say, Matt, did you want to expand on that regarding the warranty period or the period of cover is from the lodgement date?
Yeah, so when it comes to a compliance certificate insurance policy cover, it's from the date that the certificate was issued or the date the plumber last worked at the site when a certificate has not been issued. So it doesn't extend the insurance cover of a compliance certificate from the date that you lodge it. It is from the date that the plumber issued the certificate or from the date he last physically worked at that site.
Thanks, Matt.
Probably another good one here. Matt might be able to answer. If I remove a gas appliance appropriate to winter coming up to service it, do I need to issue a compliance certificate?
Yes. If you alter the fitting, alter the pipework in any manner, and that includes removing an appliance to permanently cap it, you must certify that work.
Another one here, I'll jump in. So someone's asked, can a registered builder access compliance certificates online? They could, if they have if they're a lodged certificate, they certainly could, if they've got the certificate number and the PIN number to look it up through VBA 360. If it was later down the track, perhaps, and they were taking over a job from someone, they might have to go through that that inquiry or FOI process to access the certificate.
Any others you want to clear up there, Matt, while we have a look at
I'm just flicking through the emails there. There's a lot of Q&As that we will need to answer offline, and we will undertake to do that. But there's one here about what if the plumber is deceased? Well, the VBA policy is when it comes to a deceased practitioner, the property owner or the builder would be required to either contact another plumber to come in and complete the work, contracting to complete the work started by a plumber, or contact the plumber's insurer for the same process where they will need to try and attempt to contract a plumber to come in and complete that work by a deceased practitioner.
Yeah. I might make comment on something too that may not have been covered, but because there's lots of questions also around VBA 360. Just to let practitioners know that I'd suggest you go to our website And if you type in issuing compliance certificate or compliance certificate into the search bar, you'll actually see six YouTube videos on all information on what a compliance certificate holds, how to actually fill one out, what's the mandatory area. So it's a very helpful resource because there seems to be questions around that. You can amend a certificate as well, and it'll come out as version 2 on your statement. If you happen to miss something or get, the building surveyor says, well, because sometimes there's confusion around what's actually regulated under certain streams of plumbing. So you do have the ability to amend it. We can track it as well.
I'll jump in here. So someone has asked, what is a performance solution classified as? So I'm not sure if that was answered for you through the webinar or not. But the performance solution documentation is a separate requirement to a compliance certificate. So if you perform any of that work, which triggers a compliance certificate, you're still required to issue a compliance certificate and include the paperwork for the performance solution. You must tick on the compliance certificate that you've used a performance solution, because if you don't, you're actually certifying that you've done it in a DTS manner. Now, if you haven't done it in a DTS manner, that is straight out of the standards. You provide a performance solution for it, but you haven't ticked on the compliance certificate that it's a performance solution. What you've done is certified it as a DTS, which would mean it is non-compliant until proven otherwise. Just another one as we go. So someone's also asked, what is the appropriate compliance certificate procedures if the hot water unit will be installed after the occupancy permit is issued? Another one. So I don't know if we answered that for you through the webinar, but the installation of a gas appliance itself is a trigger point to issue a compliance certificate. So if you've actually amended a compliance certificate rather than issued another one for the installation of an appliance, you've actually breached the Act by saying that you've, excuse me, by misstatement of fact.
Now, the one underneath that, I'll just make a comment on is, can anyone do plumbing work under the $750 threshold? Well, the answer is not. The answer is no. Any work, no matter what the value of the work, that's regulated work under the provisions of the plumbing regs, is still regulated work. It wouldn't attract a certificate of compliance, but it still must be done by a registered licensed practitioner.
Yeah, agree, Matt. I'll just on that, the plumbing regulations of 2018 are very clear on what is and is not plumbing work, and who can do it.
Others there before we get ready to wrap it up, guys?
Just having a look to see if there's anything there.
Maybe just one more. Just one more.
One more.
There's one here, Neville, about is a licensed plumber responsible for his work up to 10 years for either domestic or commercial? Well, the 10 years responsibility stays with the plumber for both domestic or commercial work.
Thanks, Matt. Another short one, Phil. So someone's asked, if a licensed plumber is working for a company, who is responsible for lodging and supplying the compliance certificate? That would depend on who's certifying the work and who's carrying out the work. So is the person that's carrying out the work must be authorised, and they can be either a licensed plumber or a registered plumber, but the registered plumber would need to be supervised under the supervision of a licensed plumber who issues the certificate. Now, in saying that, it might be one licensed plumber working as a subby for another. So in theory, they're under supervision, even though that's the other person issuing the certificate.
You want to take any more, Nev? Or
yeah, probably get ready to wrap up. More than Nev, I think it was mentioned. You, Matt, might be able to answer it too. I've completed emergency drain repair after hours work.
Yeah, that was one I was going to comment on.
We get that one a fair bit, so that'd be a good one to maybe clear up while we've got.
So if you're carrying out an emergency, so if you've attended a site on a weekend and you've had to dig up and replace a section of drain, the expectation is that the drain's left open if possible for inspection, and the practitioner needs to obtain an emergency repair notice from the relevant water authority, contact the VBA the next working day and book the inspection for the next available drain booking day. and be on site at the time of the booking. Now, the drain should be left open if it can be left open, but it can only be backfilled when it's unsafe to leave it open. But you need, it's not just stating it on the compliance certificate, you must still offer that drain for inspection in the manner specified by the authority.
Thanks, Matt. Yeah, thanks for joining us today. Thanks, Nev. Great presentation. And guys, hope you've enjoyed the session. If we didn't get to all your questions, answer all your questions, they'll be published as FAQs on our website, on the VBA website. We'll be sending out a email that includes a webinar survey as well as proof of attendance and the link to today's webinar and slideshow. And to find out more about our next Practitioner Education Series webinars, which we plan on having, please visit our website in the coming days, and also keep an eye out for your emails. Thank you.
Thanks all.
Thank you.